all, one half of your host, Melanie Sona here from Healthy Neighborhoods, Healthy Nation podcast. And we have something a little bit different. We would like to just go through one of the really cool geospatial maps that our most recent guest, Kate Mingoya Lafortune from Groundwork USA, had talked to us about. And we just want to give you a quick run through of what these maps are and what they show you. So this map here shows you historical segregation and climate vulnerability. So the map we have here is actually a map of redlined areas in Colorado, specifically in the Denver metropolis area. So you can see these red outlined areas here, and these are all the redlined areas which we know to be historically disinvested in, and typically these are the lower maintained, less upkept neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods that we would expect to see higher amounts of heat risk and heat exposure vulnerability. So if we scroll down here, then they do something really cool. They actually overlay a map of tree canopy cover density with these redlined maps. So as you can see in these redlined areas, we see that there's a lot less green in these spaces as compared to maybe some of the green lined areas, which are the more affluent and well-off communities. This means that there's less trees in these spaces, meaning that there's less, shade, there's less protection, less evapotranspiration, which are all things that help to cool down an area. So if we put two and two together, just from the red line maps and the tree canopy cover maps, we can see that, historically redlined areas are actually, there's a reason that they're a lot warmer, and it's because they don't have this tree coverage that wealthier areas are able to invest in planting and maintaining. And if we scroll down a little bit further, then we see another map that they overlay with the redlined areas. And this map shows us the density of impervious surfaces, which are just, talking about asphalt or concrete or all of these materials that tend to absorb heat and retain heat in an area. And look at that. What do we see? In the redlined areas, we tend to see this darker pigmentation here, which is suggesting that there's more of these impervious surfaces in redlined areas as compared to our green-lined areas, which are more wealthy, affluent, maybe more white areas. So again, this is also contributing to absorbing heat and maintaining heat in an area and contributing to the urban heat island effect that we see in cities. Again, disproportionately impacting our lower income, typically minority communities that are almost exclusively located in these redlined areas. And I'll scroll down to another map where we see here the land surface temperature. So this one's a bit more straightforward. So we see that this is just showing what is the temperature in these places, overlaid with our redlining map again. So again, we can see in the redline areas, we see a deeper red pigmentation, meaning that it's hotter there as compared to our green lined, yellow lined, blue line areas. So let's putting things together. The first two maps I showed you, the tree canopy surface density and then the impervious surface density maps overlaid with our red line maps show that, they're adding to this narrative that redlined areas, which are traditionally lower income, disinvested communities, are hotter. And they're hotter because they don't have the resources, they don't have the infrastructure put in place to facilitate, cooling mechanisms, like providing shade and having trees to do evapotranspiration and just reducing the amount of surfaces that would instead retain heat. So like Kate said in our podcast episode, which if you haven't watched it yet, you should because it's amazing, this didn't happen on accident. So this resource, which we will link in our podcast and in the description of this post, you should definitely check it out and learn a little bit of the history as to how these redlined areas came to be, why we continue to see that they are disproportionately at higher risk for heat exposure, and therefore heat exposure related illnesses and all the other implications that come from being exposed to heat. And what we can do about it to combat the issues we see plaguing communities that are already vulnerable in this nation. So it's a really cool site. We hope that you enjoy these maps, and we hope that this explanation helped a little bit to make it a bit more clear. But please visit the Groundworks USA website and check out their Climate Safe Neighborhoods initiative. And maybe they're in a city, they've done some work in a city near you. This is Denver, but they've done work in a lot of other places across the nation, and are doing a lot to combat heat. So thanks for sticking around, and join us on our next episode and our next posts to learn how we can make our nation healthier one neighborhood at a time. Thanks for listening.